What's going on YouTube? It's your boy That Single Reactions coming to y'all. This is a request from Jamie. Shout out to you, Jamie. Jamie O'Brien. This is my girl. This is your PayPal request of the most fucked up interrogation ever caught on tape. For mature audiences only. I am definitely mature enough.
Yeah, we mature.
But what could be going wrong so bad in this?
Interrogation.
Yeah, like what could possibly be happening? Well, we're gonna
What you got us into, Jamie?
All right. Don't forget my Patreon is in the description. We get exclusive access, early content, and special requests. PayPal and Cash App is closed for right now. I will open it back up sometime this week. My PO box is in the description as well. So feel free to send me whatever it is you want to send me. And let's jump into this because the video is like 100 minutes long. 28 to be exact, but
at the end of today's story, a lot of you are going to be shaking your head wondering how in the world could they have missed that. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload 2 or 3 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer to make the like button a sandwich of their choosing, but when you build it, make it between 2 very thin, stale, rye bread heels. Also, please... 2 very thin, stale rye bread heels. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads.
We'll
all right,
see,
let's
brother.
get into today's story.
Apparently he's real popular. I don't even know if Jamie gave me the context of this.
Like what it's about.
All I know is that people reacted to it and reacted to it crazy, so...
In 2006, Heather Kwan was a 21-year-old
Did she just say every second counts?
Mm-hmm.
Let me go back because I don't want to miss none. This is some kind of story.
In 2006, Heather Kwan was a 21-year-old college student living in the small residential town of Desert Hills in Arizona. From a very young age, Heather was someone who always seemed to give her friendship to the people who needed it the most, people who were hurting on the inside or who society had kind of forgotten about. This is why when she was a teenager and a young adult, she would often spend her weekends volunteering her time with underprivileged children. It's also why she aspired to go to law school and become a defense lawyer, because she loved the idea of professionally helping people that desperately needed her help. She lived in a rental home with her boyfriend, who was 18 years old. His name was Ryan Waller, and amongst other things, he was a huge gun enthusiast and a student. That year, the couple had made plans to visit Ryan's father, Don, on Christmas Day, so on December 25th. But when the day came and Don had made dinner for the couple and was expecting them, they didn't show up. And so Don tried contacting both of them, but when he couldn't, he just had a bad feeling that something was off. It was just very uncharacteristic of them to just no-show. But instead of driving over to their property himself, Don just called the local police and asked them to do a welfare check. The police arrived at the house in Desert Hills, Arizona. They knocked on the door, but there was no answer. They looked in the windows and some lights were on, but it was mostly dark inside, and they couldn't really tell from the car in the driveway if that belonged to the homeowners or somebody else. And so they stood there for a second, they're looking in the windows, there's no movement. They knock again while simultaneously calling out that, hey, we're the police, we're here to do a welfare check, just want to make sure you guys are okay. And this time, after they were done knocking, they heard the deadbolt unlock and then the door swung inward into the house, and standing right in front of them was Ryan. Ryan had this huge bruise on his left eye, this big black eye, and he had a cut on his nose, and he was just standing there, not saying anything, not asking any questions, just looking at them. And they looked past Ryan into his house, and they saw there was a woman lying on the couch, which they presumed was his girlfriend Heather, because that was the 2 people they were coming to look for. And so they turned their attention back to Ryan, and they asked him, what happened to your eye? And Ryan was a little bit cagey. He didn't really give them a straight answer. He basically said, I don't know. I don't know what happened to my eye. And, the police didn't really pry that much, but eventually they determined that Ryan was more or less okay, albeit a little bit strange. And then they said, okay, well, who's the woman who's lying on the couch? Is that Heather? And Ryan, again, was kind of cagey and a little bit dismissive and said something along the lines of, oh, she's just sleeping. And so the police said to him, look, we're here on a welfare check. Your father sent us here to check on you guys. And so we we have to go in there and wake her up and make sure she's okay. And so
trust
Ryan, again, was just a little bit weird and kind of defensive and didn't really immediately comply, but eventually did step out of the way. And the police walked into the residence, they walked over to the couch, and as soon as they looked down at the girl on the couch, which was Heather, they saw right away that she was not asleep, she was dead. And she had been for at least a couple of days. She had died from a single gunshot wound to the head. Immediately, Ryan was arrested and brought out to a squad car. He didn't fight the arrest, but he did emphatically say he didn't know what was going on, he didn't understand what was happening, he didn't know what happened to Heather. He just seemed kind of generally confused. But regardless, he was thrown in the back of the police car outside the property, and he would sit there for several hours while more and more police and paramedics arrived to process the crime scene and also to transfer Heather's body to a morgue. Finally, around 5 a.m. on December 26th, the police brought Ryan, who was still in the back of this police car, to the Phoenix police station for questioning. The interrogation that followed, this hour-long interrogation that was all filmed, would start off relatively normally, but it would quickly devolve into this totally bizarre back and forth between Ryan and the detective who was questioning him. And then at the end of the interrogation, there would be this stunning revelation. From this point until the end of today's video, we're going to be showing you clips from the actual interrogation. When you get to the end of this video and you hear the revelation, and trust me, you will not miss it, I would encourage you to then go back and watch the clips of the interrogation, or just go online and watch the entire interrogation, because it's totally mind-blowing watching this thing, knowing what's really going on. In the video, Ryan is led into this sort of nondescript, small interrogation room.
Remember they told us to pay attention to everything.
That's why my eyes ain't left this damn screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to...
At 5:08 a.m. on December 26th. So he's just arrived at the station, they put him in this room, he's wearing this white jumpsuit that might have been issued by police, maybe he owned it, but it definitely looks more like prison attire. He's got no shoes on, no socks on, and his hands are not cuffed. And so he walks into the room and he sits down in the chair that's in the back corner of the interrogation room, and this chair is right next to this table, and then on the other side of this table is another chair. And so Ryan sits down in the corner, he's kind of facing out towards the middle of the room, he's quiet, he's basically not moving, and then at some point he notices there is a handcuff that's connected to this table. Now, in some cases, the police would handcuff the person they were interviewing in this room, but in this case, Ryan was not told that he needed to put this handcuff on. He was uncuffed, so there was no directive that he needed to have this handcuff on.
Is this real? Like, because Ryan giving me vibes like,
Possession.
I know I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
let me do this for y'all. Like, pay attention to that paper.
After handcuffing himself to this table, Ryan turns and puts his arms over this table, and he lays down, puts his head in his arms, and he lays that way for about 5 minutes. Periodically, he makes a few groaning sounds, but for the most part, he's quiet. And then all of a sudden, as he's laying there, he suddenly makes a fairly loud moaning sound, and he stands up in his chair like he's going to walk out of the room, but as soon as he starts to walk away, the handcuff stops him. The handcuff that he was not told to put on. And so he's stuck against this table, but he doesn't seem fazed by it. He looks almost confused by what's happening, but he doesn't dwell on it for very long.
Okay, right away, this video is probably long. Right away, he clearly has a memory issue.
Yeah.
If you don't remember that your girlfriend is on the couch dead, he just snapped the handcuffs on.
He's either crazy, possessed, or like say got
like
amnesia,
schizo or something.
Amnesia or something.
He looks almost confused by what's happening, but he doesn't dwell on it for very long. Instead, he just reaches across the table and grabs a blank piece of paper, and then he just sits back down in the seat, he crosses his legs, and he starts looking at this piece of paper. At 5:17 a.m., so roughly 9 minutes into this interrogation, which really hasn't even started yet, Ryan is intently looking at this blank piece of paper when a detective walks into the interrogation room. This detective was named Dalton, and he informs Ryan that they're going to be taking pictures of his feet, and so he needs to put his feet up on the table that's right next to
I don't know
him.
who
Ryan
put him
at
on
first
this big
acts very
pantsuit.
confused and doesn't really understand what's happening, but he eventually complies and he puts his feet up on the table, and by the time his feet are up there, another officer walks into the interrogation room, and he's got a camera and he's got this big kit with him, and he would begin about a 10-minute long process of photographing Ryan's feet and also swabbing Ryan's feet. During this 10-minute session, Dalton stays in the room, and so Ryan periodically asks him if he can just leave and go home, seemingly unaware of how serious this situation really was for him. And when Dalton would tell him, no, you can't leave, Ryan would act totally frustrated and kind of angry and upset, kind of like how a child would act if they were told they couldn't have something they really wanted to. At 5:28 a.m., after this 10-minute session is complete and they've photographed and swabbed Ryan's feet, the second officer leaves the room and Dalton shuts the door behind him, and then he walks over to the table and he grabs the chair on the other side from Ryan. He drags it out so it's closer to Ryan, and then he sits down and introduces himself. After that, he begins asking Ryan some very basic questions. He asks him to confirm his name, which he does. He asks him to confirm his date of birth and his social security number, and Ryan does both those things. And then he asks Ryan if he understands why he was there, why he was being interrogated. And Ryan says no. And so at this point, Dalton says, okay, let's just stop right now. I'm going to read you your rights.
They think he's
and so it's
playing.
at this point in the interrogation that Ryan's behavior starts to get really, really weird. After Dalton tells Ryan he needs to read him his rights, you can see Ryan doesn't compute what he's saying. He's just kind of looking blankly, and Dalton seems to pick up on that, and so he tries to make it kind of lighthearted, and he says, hey Ryan, I'm going to read you your rights like they do on TV, like on Cops and on Law and Order and CSI, any of those crime shows, they read people their rights. That's what I'm going to do. You know what I'm talking about? And Ryan just goes, no. And Dalton's kind of confused. He's like, you haven't seen any cop show where they read people their rights? And at this, Ryan kind of changes his behavior. And suddenly he's not as robotic. He's a little bit defensive looking. And he says, oh, yeah, I have, yeah. At this, it's pretty obvious to Dalton that Ryan is lying about something that is totally insignificant. Whether or not he's seen true crime TV shows, it really just didn't matter at all. And there's this weird hesitation where both of them are just kind of being quiet for a minute. It's like Dalton knows he's lying about it, and Ryan just seems totally confused. And then ultimately, Dalton just decides to not key in on this kind of weird lie that Ryan has just told. Instead, he just reads Ryan his rights. And then after that, he gets back into some basic questions. The next one was, hey Ryan, what was the highest grade you achieved in school? And now at this point, Ryan is not looking at Dalton. He's looking to the far side of the room. He's got this blank expression on. And when he's asked this question, he just says, I don't know. And Dalton's like, you don't know what level grade you achieved in school? And Ryan says, no, I don't know. Eighth grade. So again, he's changed his answer fairly abruptly when he's challenged. And so Dalton is probably thinking to himself that he's lying again. But again, it's just kind of an insignificant thing, but it's building a pattern of mistrust here. It's hard for Dalton to believe.
See, you would think that a person like him is just playing. Like cops, you detectives and stuff don't really just believe that a person is just out of it. They think that you're crazy. I mean, he's being asked simple questions and he's just pretty much like, yeah, I don't know.
But he backpedaling. Like,
yeah.
Sometimes he actually know what he's saying.
Like, what if this was what he was doing from the start? Like, if you were planning this, pleading insanity, like, you want to start when you did that.
He don't want to believe he did what he did.
But let's see.
Believe that Ryan is going to be truthful if he can't even tell the truth about things that don't matter. But Dalton decides not to fixate on it. Instead, he asks a follow-up question based on the fact that Ryan has said 8th grade is the highest level he achieved. And so Dalton says, okay, well, did you get your GED? A GED is a high school diploma equivalent, and it's something you would get if you did not graduate high school. And since 8th grade is below high school, then Ryan clearly did not finish high school, and so it's a natural question to ask. The answer to this question is binary. You have a GED, you don't have a GED. But Ryan's answer is anything but binary. It's totally contradictory and weird, and it really begins to show a side of Ryan that just doesn't add up. He's acting totally weird.
Do you have a GED?
I don't know.
You don't know what?
I don't know. I don't know. I just
want to go home.
It's like he
We're
took
not gonna go
something.
home. I know.
So what?
What's the highest grade that you completed?
B?
No. Not grade as in letter grade. I'm asking, did you graduate high school?
No.
And the highest you went was 8th grade?
He said, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know how to read and write, Ryan?
Yeah.
After the discussion about Ryan's education goes nowhere, Dalton again does not fixate on all the issues with his answers so far, and instead just kind of continues asking more questions. And so he begins to address Heather. He starts by asking Ryan if he has a girlfriend. Now, Dalton at this point would know that Heather, the girl who was deceased, was Ryan's girlfriend,
Right.
because the police were asked to do the initial welfare check on Ryan and Heather, the couple. That's something that Dawn would have relayed to police. And so Dalton knows they have a relationship, but he wants Ryan to tell him he has a relationship with Heather. So again, he asks Ryan, do you have a girlfriend? And Ryan says no, which is a lie. But Dalton goes along with it and says, okay, well, do you know a girl named Heather? And Ryan would say, yes, I do. But his description of Heather was just completely inaccurate. He said Heather was a 16 or 17-year-old girl, even though she was actually 21. And he would say her last name was Kyman. He thought. He wasn't entirely sure. He said she has nicknames and she has different names she uses, but he believes it's Kyman, even though her last name was actually Kwan. Now, Dalton, of course, is aware of these discrepancies, but again, he does not fixate on them. He just keeps on asking more questions. Dalton asks Ryan, what happened to your face? You have this huge bruise on the left side of your face. What happened? At first, Ryan says he doesn't know. But when Dalton pressed him and kept asking more and more questions about his face and how it happened, Ryan eventually would begin to open up.
What happened to your face?
I don't know.
You told the officer just a few minutes ago that someone hit you. Do you remember who hit you?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, I would think he playing.
I think it was Heather.
Why would Heather hit you?
I don't know.
Come on,
It was
dude.
an accident. I forgot why.
Like the other police
It was an
officers
accident, I
involved,
forgot why.
Dalton believed already going into this interrogation that Ryan killed Heather. That the bruise on his face was from Heather
Self-defense,
fighting
yeah.
back before ultimately Ryan killed her. And so for Ryan to say the mark on my face is from Heather, even though he claimed it was an accident, to Dalton,
Proves you're
that was the
guilty.
same
Yep.
thing as Ryan saying, I killed Heather.
Yeah.
Dalton attempted to get more specific details about the actual physical struggle that took place between Ryan and Heather, but as he asked more and more questions, he became more and more aggressive, and it seemed like Ryan picked up on it and became very defensive and started throwing out random pieces of information, much of which seemed untrue. Like he suggested there was at least 2 or 3 other people that were in the house on the night that Heather got killed, but it's unclear if these people were real or if they were actually ever there. And it just seemed like Ryan was kind of panicking and just kind of saying all sorts of
The ghetto.
This ain't no damn ghetto.
I know, I'm just saying. Bro. I want to make sure you're still in the frame and stuff. Okay.
random things. And so at some point, Dalton just wants to focus the conversation because he feels like it's getting totally out of hand. And so he just stops Ryan and he says, Ryan, there is a dead girl in your house and I need information.
Hey, Ryan,
Huh? Huh?
there's a dead girl in your living room.
She's dead?
Yes.
Heather?
I don't know. I want to know what happened in your house last
You know
night.
it was Heather.
Wait, what?
I said he knew it was Heather. He was pretending like he didn't know at first, remember?
Oh, yeah. Good catch.
I don't know. I want to know what happened in your house last night.
The girl on the couch is dead?
I don't know if she's on the couch. She's dead.
The interesting thing about Ryan's reaction to being told by Dalton for the first time in the interrogation that there was a dead girl in his house is Ryan reacted with genuine surprise. It's the only time in the entire interrogation, start to finish, where Ryan sits forward in his chair, he kind of perks up, and he seems relatively normal. He's not acting confused and kind of bizarre. It's like he's really dialed in, as if he had not heard this before, that he didn't know Heather was dead, and he's now for the first time being told, and it shocked his system. But just seconds after he sits forward and seems really engaged, he goes back to kind of being totally bizarre, and he also suddenly had this really elaborate story about what happened to Heather, even though just seconds ago it seemed like he had just learned about it. So it didn't really make any sense that he would have a story so readily available for something he seemed to not know anything about. And of course, like all of his other answers, his story he gave was full of contradictions and holes and was just totally unbelievable.
Well, these people came over, Richie and his dad, with shoot and arrow, bow and darts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They hit me and her with those. That's it.
They hit you and they hit you?
Yeah.
Now it's Richie that hit you, not Heather?
No, Richie and his dad.
Richie and his dad.
Maybe that's how he
They
got
hit
the
you.
black eye.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Why?
he said.
I don't think no woman would have hit him that
But he
damn.
said Heather accidentally. He think Heather
That's
accidentally
where they
hit him.
said he got holes in his story because
Yeah.
he keep changing.
Now Richie and his dad came over, which you ain't bring
You
none
ain't
of that
even
up
say
at
shit
first.
about no
They hit you?
Richie.
Yeah.
Now it's Richie that hit you, not Heather?
No, Richie and his dad.
Richie and his dad. They hit you.
Yes.
Why?
Because they're trying to get their stuff. I don't know why.
And they had some kind of bow and arrows?
Thief, maybe.
Mm-hmm. They each had 2 revolvers and they didn't let off any shells.
They didn't let off any
Okay,
shit.
you just said they had bow and arrows. Now they have revolvers?
That's what I meant. They had revolvers.
They have revolvers.
Yes.
And then what happened?
And then they shot us with those.
Following this exchange,
He
Ryan would
did
change his
shot.
story again
That's-
and would say, actually, they didn't shoot me, they just shot Heather, they put me in a sleeper hold. But when Dalton asked him, what do you mean sleeper hold? Ryan said, oh, I don't know what a sleeper hold is. And then eventually, Ryan would actually just ditch the sleeper hold narrative and go back
So it was Heather accidentally who hit him. Then it was Richie and his dad that came over.
And hit them with crossbow arrows.
Yeah, he ain't say nothing about shooting yet, but he just said they came
Now
over
it
with
done
crossbows
turned from arrows
to a revolver.
revolvers.
to the Richie and his father. They came in and they shot both of us. At this point, Ryan's story has become so convoluted and it's changed so many times that it's just totally unbelievable. And so Dalton, who was doing his best to kind of go along with Ryan's story, at this point just can't even pretend anymore. He cannot pretend that he's following this story. It doesn't make any sense.
They really don't.
You're telling me you're all over the board here, number one. You're
Right.
saying
You
bows
don't
and
know what that
arrows, and
means.
saying revolvers, and you're saying some other thing, and you're saying they shot you in the eye. Okay? They shot you with a revolver in your eye.
Yes. And that's
Is it a BB gun?
Right.
No, it was a real gun, man.
had
It
no
was just
damn
a
They
gun.
revolver.
shot you in the eye with a revolver.
And your eyes
You
still
wouldn't
there.
be talking to me right now.
Yeah, I'm about to
You
say.
wouldn't have
How do you know?
that.
How did,
Most likely you be dead.
That's what I thought too, man. I really don't know.
So you got shot first,
Uh-huh.
and what happened? Did you fall to the ground?
Yeah, I was trying to get up and I couldn't. I don't
Okay.
know.
And then she got shot?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
Nothing.
Did you call 911?
Uh-uh.
Did you see if she was alive?
She was sleeping still, and that's it. I just let her sleep.
She got shot in
was
the side of the
dead.
face and you let her sleep?
Yes.
This does not make sense, Ryan.
After this exchange, Dalton just goes full bad
there,
cop.
since something ain't there with Ryan.
Oh,
Ryan,
it's beyond not there. I mean,
on Ryan, openly
Jacked
accusing
up.
him of shooting and killing Heather. And Ryan just continues to say he doesn't know anything, that he didn't do it, and his answers are just totally nonsensical and contradictory, and nothing is making sense. And so finally, at 5:52 a.m., roughly 45 minutes into this interrogation, Dalton is just at a loss. He does not know how to handle Ryan, because even though he really believes he did it, nothing Ryan has said has incriminated him, because nothing Ryan has said makes any sense. And so he's
Right.
sitting there kind of thinking what he's going to do next, and then Dalton notices something. He notices something on Ryan's face.
Okay.
He tells Ryan to come closer. He needs to look at it.
Let me see your nose.
Don't say
Put
makeup.
your legs down. Put your legs down. Bring your face closer.
Oh, my head hurts.
Okay.
Oh, you thought it was makeup?
Yeah, I thought it was makeup.
You scared me because I ain't know where we was going.
He loony if he made himself up.
What Dalton had finally just discovered were 4 bullet holes in Ryan's face and head. Ryan had committed no crime. He was a victim the same way Heather was a victim, but somehow Ryan had survived the attack. On December 23rd,
I wonder if this is why Ryan's so combobulated.
He
Like,
don't know. Of course, you get shot, your memory and shit lost.
He got, what did it, graze him? Or is this dude some superhuman?
Something.
so 2 days before the
People done
welfare
got shot in the
check, 2
face
men
and lived before. I mean,
4 times?
it depends on what angles it go in, because I mean, you gotta think some people. I mean, people that got shot dead center in their face and lived, but it, like I said, it
Yeah, that
dep-
governor did.
it
Remember during
depend
that
on,
Virginia
too.
Tech mass shooting?
I was about to say it depend on how powerful the gun is, but a revolver,
revolver?
is yeah, I would say that's pretty powerful.
This dude walking like he just...
On December 23rd, so 2 days
They ain't
before
talking
the
to
welfare
no ghosts.
check, 2 men attempted to break into Ryan and Heather's house. They were 23-year-old
Wait a minute,
Richie
I don't want
Penn
to miss nothing.
at the attack. On December 23rd, so 2 days before the welfare check, 2 men attempted to break into Ryan and Heather's house. They were 23-year-old Richie Carver
So
and
he
his
knew that, at
54-year-old
least.
father, Larry
Right.
Carver. The same Richie and Richie's father that Ryan had mentioned during the interrogation.
right.
They were there because of an altercation that had occurred between Richie and the couple about a month earlier. During that time, Richie was actually living with Ryan and Heather, but apparently he began hitting on Heather, and Heather told Ryan, and Ryan got really mad about it, and Ryan and Richie got in this big fight, and ultimately Ryan kicks Richie out of the house.
Okay.
Now, this totally infuriates Richie and is very embarrassing for Richie, and so right away he begins plotting his revenge. And so on December 23rd, Richie and his father, they were there to carry out this revenge plot. When the father and son got to the back of Ryan and Heather's house, Ryan saw them at the back door through the glass door that was near their kitchen, and he ran over to try to stop them from getting inside. But Richie and Larry managed to barely get open the door, and Richie reached in with his hand, which was carrying a gun, and he shot Ryan point blank twice in the face. The first bullet went in through his nose and then out the other side of his nose, so that's the first 2 bullet holes. And then that bullet traveled back into his head through his left eye into his brain where it got lodged. And along with the bullet, 6 pieces of his skull that broke off from this bullet went inside of his brain as well. So that's the first 3 bullet holes. And then the second bullet that was fired into Ryan's head hit the side of his head. It did not penetrate into his skull. So the bullet didn't
look,
lodge
God,
anywhere
dang.
inside his
Dang,
brain.
boy.
However, it did break off a piece of his skull. And so that was the 4th bullet hole. Ryan dropped to the ground. He was unconscious. They assumed he was dead. They managed to force the door the rest of the way open. They stepped inside. They stepped over Ryan's body, and they walked into the living room where Heather was cowering on the sofa, and Richie just immediately walked up, put a gun to her head, and fired a single shot. After she had fallen to the ground, the 2 men stole some things in the house and then fled the scene. They would ultimately get caught, and they're both currently serving life sentences. It's believed Heather died instantly from her gunshot wound, but Ryan didn't. At some point, maybe a couple of hours after he was shot, he woke up, but he had severe brain damage, and he wouldn't have
So
known.
he probably woke up and maybe thought he did it.
Yeah, it seemed like he didn't really know what happened.
What happened, like, yeah.
because he literally said like they had came in. He literally kind of didn't leave some of the details out at least. I mean, he said they came, he knew the names. So, I mean, at least his brain ain't completely gone.
Yeah, because I don't know what made him say Heather accidentally hit me.
Because he probably thought it was her when it was one of them that hit him.
On what was going on, he didn't really know what happened, and he saw his girlfriend Heather lying on the couch, but he thought she was just sleeping, and so he too went to his bedroom and he fell asleep.
Oh, that's
but
why
the
he
next
said,
morning
I
he
wanted to
woke
leave
up
her
and he
asleep.
still would have had no idea what was going on, and he spent the day on the 24th just kind of wandering around his house with his girlfriend lying
There
on the
dead,
couch.
didn't
And
know.
so after a full day of just kind of mindlessly walking around his house, he went back to bed, and then he got up on Christmas Day on the 25th and spent another day just kind of walking about his house with his girlfriend, who he believed was sleeping, but really she was dead. And so
Wait, so, but you do, well, maybe because his brain was really messed up.
Yeah, he didn't know
But
how long she was actually
I'm shocked
asleep.
that he didn't, you know, at least be like, hey, wake up. Like, but maybe it's because he was so, his brain was messed up.
Yeah, he didn't.
Fragments.
It wasn't
finally, the welfare
functioning.
check is called in. The police show up, and as soon as they see Ryan, they jumped to conclusions that he must have killed Heather, and it kind of dictated the way they treated him. Had they believed he was a victim, they might have sought medical attention for the wound on his face.
Right.
But again, jumping to conclusions and assuming he was the killer, they figured that bruise on his face was from the woman fighting back. She'd
Self-defense.
struck him before he had savagely killed her. And so they didn't give him any medical care. Instead, they put him out in the cop car out front of the property, and he sat there with no medical intervention for 6 hours.
Wow.
And during those 6 hours, literally every second that went by, there was irreversible brain damage being caused because he had all this bleeding inside of his head
Right.
that was causing brain damage.
Jesus.
And so the clock was ticking as soon as they found him, and for hours and hours and hours, he got no care and was just getting worse and worse and worse. And so finally, he goes to the police station, and again, they do not give him any medical care. Instead, they interrogate him for almost 2
That is
hours,
sad.
even
Wow.
though he has 4 bullet holes on his face that apparently no one noticed
they
or
didn't
no one took
notice
seriously. But regardless,
I
he
thought they
spent
were
those
blood
almost 2
spots.
more hours in the
Right.
interrogation room, where every second that's going by, his brain is getting more and more destroyed, irreparably destroyed. And then finally, at the end of the interrogation, Dalton, who's probably thinking to himself, what is wrong with this guy? His answers don't make any sense. He's all over the place. And that's when he stepped back from looking for a way to convict this guy and noticed the holes on his face, specifically the hole in his nose. And that's when he called him forward, and he looked at his face and he realized a huge mistake had been made, and he called an ambulance. Here is a clip of the fire department who arrived ahead of the ambulance in the interrogation room, learning about what's happened to Ryan as they wait for the ambulance.
Hey guys. Captain, you're not gonna believe this one.
I can't believe it either.
You're right. I've already heard the story. I can't believe it.
This
This is just my observations that this might be an entrance, this might be an exit, this might be into his eye. And he's acting like he has a serious head injury, which would make sense.
Ryan was ultimately rushed to the hospital where he would
sad.
undergo emergency surgery that would save his life, but it would come at a great cost. They not only had to remove a large portion of his brain, but they also had to remove both of his eyes. Now, it should be noted that at least one other source says he only had his left eye removed, but regardless, after this surgery, Ryan was no longer independent. He had so much brain damage, he couldn't take care of himself, and so he had to move back in with his parents, who became his full-time caretakers. And then 10 years later, Ryan would die from a seizure that was directly connected to the injuries he sustained from that attack, and it's connected to the lack of care he received in those first critical 8 hours after the police found him. The Phoenix Police Department, after this mishandling of Ryan's case went public, they did an internal investigation, but no one was ever disciplined, at least not publicly. As for Ryan's family, they certainly could have filed a lawsuit against the Phoenix Police Department, but they chose not to. They said the only thing we want is our son back, and a lawsuit will not give us that.
Well,
So
you
that's
can't
going to do
get
it,
that back,
guys.
so you
If
might
you
as well
got
get the
something out of
lawsuit.
today's episode and you haven't done
That
this
was
already,
very-
please offer to make the like button a sandwich of their choosing. But when you make it, make sure you construct it
was
between
the
two
fastest
very
20
That was
thin,
a real
stale
chilling
rye bread
story.
It was.
Also, Also, please subscribe to our channel and
Because
turn on
I
all
ain't-
notifications. So
We
you don't miss
thinking
any
he
of our
was
weekly
really
2 or
fucked
3
up.
video
But
uploads.
but
we are now
this is
selling
crazy
merchandise
though.
like flannels and hats and sweatshirts and mugs and all sorts of stuff. If you're interested, go to shopmrballen.com. If you want to learn about upcoming deals and promotions in our shop, go to our shop's Instagram page. The username is
But this is what's
shopmrballen.
crazy
If you want to
about
get in
this.
touch with me, you can direct message me on Instagram or on Twitter. My username for both platforms is the same. It's johnballen416. I also have a ton of content over on TikTok where my username is Mr. Ballen. We also have a second YouTube channel called Mr. Ballen Shorts where we post random short videos and lost episodes. We also have a Facebook page just called Mr. Ballen where we post condensed versions of the long episodes you see on YouTube. If you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit just called Mr. Ballen. It's linked in the description below. So whether I see you on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, or some combination, just know that I really appreciate your support. And until next time, that's going to do it. See ya.
So this is what's crazy about that, real quick. The police during all of that time could have looked at his nose and could have seen that there was a bullet hole.
I can't believe they didn't see holes in somebody's face. Now, from what we seeing from, our vision, it looked like blood spots on his face.
Right,
Like,
because
I'm
we
thinking-
can't see.
Yeah,
like
we
a-
can't see holes.
But there's no way you can look at a person's face. That's the first thing you will look at to see what damage has been done to you, so you can observe like the area and what could have happened.
They only
and
saw the black eye. That's weird.
you didn't see the nose. The dude said, "Come here closer." This one detective, 6 hours in a police car.
And they had to have been in his face prior to
I
that
don't know.
investigation.
I don't know about that.
It
Sketchy.
seems a little iffy to me.
Yeah. That was crazy, but yeah. Thank y'all so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. Follow me on my social media platforms. Everything is in the description to the next video. Peace.
Peace.